The Real Risk. This is Soundbites, and I'm Alan Davidson. Staring into screens? That's the situation of far too many kids today. And NYU's Scott Galloway thinks it's an important risk.
Big tech is not our friend. It's not concerned with the well-being of our children. Their job is every day to figure out how to get our kids spending one more minute away from relationships and on a screen, which they can monetize. So there's a real threat that the deepest-pocketed, most talented companies in the world are trying to separate us and isolate us. And young people, especially young men, are especially vulnerable to the notion they can have friends, income, romantic partners on a screen. Men ages 20 to 30 are spending less time outdoors than prison inmates. The number of teens who see their friends every day has been cut in half.
The solution? Parents knowing when to turn off the tech. With Soundbites, I'm Alan Davidson for CBS News.
I'm Larry Magid with the Connect Safely report. Artificial intelligence isn't human, but it can sometimes feel as though it is. Some AI systems speak in the first person, flatter users, or act overly supportive, which can make them seem more like companions than software. That illusion can be especially powerful for children and teens. But these systems don't have feelings, judgment, or human understanding. They predict words based on patterns. And of course, they can make mistakes and encourage unhealthy emotional dependence or even harmful behavior. California Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Cahan has co-sponsored state legislation to regulate AI.
That says that chatbots that are handed to our children in every California classroom, in our homes to help them with their math homework, are safe by design.
More at connectsafely.org/radio. With the Connect Safely report, I'm Larry Magid for CBS News.
Reading, writing, and religion. I'm Fred Bottomer with Report on Religion. A federal appeals court has upheld a Texas
They didn't even have accordion shutters. It was like the pieced together shutters at that time. The panels. I always feel bad. Like
Again, hadzi 1% guini gidzaguahanam.
Yeah.
The ones where it's like, oh, my typhoon experience. You press the button.
Yeah.
Manadzen, let's go back to playing Nintendo.
One day I'm gonna have it like that. One day I'm gonna have it where I have all my shutters on remote. I press like the panic button. You know what I mean? And I go into like zombie apocalypse mode. Everything closes down and like it gives me the signal when we're absolutely secure. And my alternate air source is going through the house. My filtration system is live. Oh man, you can tell I haven't done this in a minute. I'm so rude, and I didn't even introduce my guest. Today, we have a guest in the studio on the show today. His name is Dr. Michael Lujan Bevacqua. I'm sure many of you have heard of him. If you haven't, you got to get out from under that rock you've been living under. It's not a good place to be. But yeah, thank you, Miguel, for coming in to the show. Dr. Bevacqua, affectionately known as Miguel. I've known Miguel long enough where I don't give him the doctor treatment all the time. But he is a doctor, not a medical doctor, but an amazing one nonetheless. And just before we get into it, for those of you that are interested, Miguel does, in addition to being the curator at the Guam Museum, Miguel does a lot of really great cultural programming. And primarily in the way of education. So first and foremost, I really love promoting your language classes. Miguel offers free language classes, and they're online. Mm-hmm. This was like a COVID baby, right?
Well,
did this come up? Did you start before COVID?
It started as coffee shop classes.
Right, I remember those.
For those of you that remember Java Junction and Hagatnya, Mr. Taituno, I had coffee shop classes there because, I had a bunch of students, people that said, I can't take a class, I can't afford it. So I would just, and interestingly enough, Ken Gofigan Cooper, he was like the first person to ever take my coffee shop classes when he was an undergrad student. And then so I would offer those for years. People just come on a Friday afternoon, a Saturday morning, learn some Chamorro. And then, but when Java Junction closed in the pandemic, I moved it all to Zoom. And now, sometimes hundreds of people from the diaspora join.
Yeah, I think that was the happy accident.
Yeah.
I mean, like the craziness of the pandemic, and the internet virtual engagement became like a real thing. And I remember it's so funny. The pandemic is what made me like start talking to my friends from high school again. Like the ones that I actually like. Sorry guys, we don't know. We didn't all get along. But everybody got their like close group of friends, right, from when you were kids, and I'm still close with this group of friends. I love them dearly. We're still part of each other's lives, but I only really talk to them when it's like one of my godkids' birthdays, or like somebody's got a birthday and I text them, or get a phone call in. But during the pandemic, we started being deliberate about it, like, hey guys, safety meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. and we're like video conference call each other on WhatsApp or on Zoom. And I was stoked because I ended up putting just purchasing the premium package on Zoom so that you can have more than a 45-minute meeting. And I needed it because we're doing all of our work meetings on Zoom. Ironically, you can't purchase that using government funds because you need a credit card. But I just bid it. I'm like, I need this. This is important for my work life. And so since I had it, I'm like, hey guys, I got the platinum package, bro. We can have our meeting. We can talk as long as we want. And a bunch of dudes in a Zoom call. We still, just like in real life, we still don't have like a whole lot that we want to talk about on the phone. We can hang out in person for hours, but on the phone, it's like, yeah, I think I'm good, guys.
Yeah, all right. Esta.
Yeah, but that was one of the cool things that I noticed, was that when you move the platform into the digital platform, it was just this cool kind of perfect storm of circumstances where, people, I felt like you still sustained, you even grew your local audience just because it's easier to access and people are at home anyway. But then you just like opened the Pandora's box in the diaspora, which is a really beautiful thing. I think it's really exciting, especially seeing seeing you go through multiple cohorts. So one of the cool things that Dr. Bavacqua does is he brings the cohorts to, or the cohorts plan their trip to Guam. And so they have like an in-person engagement after doing a semester of Tomoto language classes, and they come and they do spend time at the museum, they spend time at the Tomoto village, at the Hurao school, the immersion school, and they do a lot of cool stuff. But I think it's an awesome way for it's just an exciting thing because I've got a chance to meet a lot of your students, and the everybody has their own kind of experience with it, but the common thread for all of them is this sense of like feeling whole again, you know what I mean? Or not even again, feeling whole for the first time, which is such a beautiful thing. I have to say that it's so encouraging to see people of all different ages come to these classes and then, return home to Guam for some of them for the first time. They've never been to Guam.
It's true.
It's an awesome thing to see, just how excited they are, and, the experience that they have, not just, meeting their classmates in person, but then engaging with their families and having these collective experiences with the community. It's a really beautiful thing. And so I want to commend you, Miguel. I know that's not why I asked you to come on the show this morning.
No.
We're going to get to that.
No, Masi. I mean, just for everyone out there, because it's the state of the people now where the majority of us can't speak Chamorro, right? And so in Guam too, right, in the diaspora, even if you're young in the CNMI, you probably can't speak Chamorro, right? So we do what we can to support each other, right? If your aunts and uncles are going to tease you, then you got to look for community elsewhere. And so I think a lot of people find support in that way. And so, yeah, I'm happy to offer these classes because young people find support, but the most kind of what you were talking about in terms of finding like wholeness in it, healing, like, one of, I have like students that are in their 70s,
right?
In their late 60s, their 70s, Chamorros, even non-Chamorros, right? A few weeks ago, there was a JFK reunion class that was coming through. They were having their reunion gathering on island, and it was a bunch of non-Chamorros who were at JFK in the 70s.
Right.
You know, a bunch of like white ladies, white guys. But Guam was special for them when they were here, and they all want to like relearn Chamorro and remember Chamorro. So they all joined my Zoom classes.
That's
and when
awesome.
they came back, they all came to the museum, and they were all so happy. And, you know, and it was just like, yeah, you know, we love your class. We're trying to learn Chamorro because, you know, we could speak a little bit of it because, you know, there was all these Chamorros that were speaking Chamorro to us when we were here. And so it's just a reminder that, you know, the language, we should share the language, you know. And it's, you know, share Kelegwin, you know, share your fuck-eye shirts.
Yep.
And share the language too.
Yeah, I think it's exciting because there's so many kind of different, I guess, aspects of this conversation around the state of the Tamoto language today, and you know what its value is, what it was, what it is today, and what will it be in the future. And that's one of the things that I always thought was really important when we talk about the state of the language is that, you know, like for me, and I'm in my 40s. When I was in school, in high school, right, you need, even though we have policy where you need at least 1 credit of Tamoto language in order to graduate from a public high school, you know, any language instructor will tell you that, you know, taking a class 1 period of the day for a semester so you can earn a credit, that's not how you acquire language, right, or proficiency or fluency. And then on the other side of it, if you want to graduate from a public high school, you need 2 years of a foreign language. And in Guam, traditionally, foreign language in high schools are going to be either Spanish, Japanese, French if you're lucky. I don't say if you're lucky just because, you know, not all schools have it. Most schools don't have a French teacher. Some schools would be lucky to just have one of those, either Japanese or Spanish. But I remember when I was in school, you know, teachers and parents and relatives would always say, well, you should take Japanese because then you can get a job in Tumon.
Yep.
And I never really thought about it back then, but now when I look back on that experience, I realized that, you know, one, they weren't lying. Right, there truly was, you know, an economic value in acquiring Japanese. Right, as a major market in the '90s, our tourism industry was like, you know, just rocking and rolling. Right, I mean, it is a new industry, but we were really coming into our own. And so there's this kind of clear value in your life to acquire that language. Right, but in the same breath, you know, like if you I went to school at Southern High School. When we talk. When we talk, if we sound a little bit too Tamoto, we're chods, you know what I mean? And chod is bad because that means that you're one of those uneducated, ignorant Tamotos. And I always had like problems with that, you know, in that idea. But I always thought that, you know, that was such a real factor that doesn't get enough attention is that, you know, it's only in recent time that we've started to kind of create and assert the value of Tamoto language, even in terms of the economy, right? Like now you can work at a place like the Department of Tamoto Affairs or Commissione Finot Tamoto, or you can work in Tamoto Studies with DOE or in Tamoto Studies over at the university. And so we've started to create, you know, these systems where we're really showing that there is value in it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And that value, I think, is growing, which is a really great thing. But, you know, I also think that the other kind of less noticed part of the discussion is that the loss of Tamoto language in our islands was not an accident. And it was not on us. You know, I think that part really kind of rubs me the wrong way when I hear people say, oh, well, you know, you Tamoros are so upset about not losing your language or losing your language. Well, that's your fault for not learning it, or that's your parents' fault for not teaching you. And I think a lot of us even internalize that, and we kind of have this animosity to our elders that, oh, you know, my parents didn't speak Tamoto to me. And I always think back on those moments and think to myself that how do you blame a parent for not speaking you teaching you Tamoto when their experience as a kid speaking Tamoto was a negative one, right? Where they were punished for speaking Tamoto. They were reprimanded or they were fined, and then their parents were the ones who lived through the English only in public places. You know, the government mandate instituted by the Navy. You know, to see the way that the Guam Museum as an institution has kind of gone about its business in a way that is very unapologetically Samoru.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, man. And, you know, Deputy Besangani Honaisi Masi, because it's under your term at the head of the Department of Chamorro Affairs that, you know, you've brought me in, you've brought Vince Regis in, and, you know, these are like, you know, these are bold steps to really kind of take the Guam Museum out of the garden house phase,
Right.
out of kind of the very static,
The nomad phase,
You know,
when we were
yeah.
like renting GPO.
Yeah.
Or what is it? What was the ITC, right? Wasn't there an exhibit up in ITC
yeah,
at
there
one
was
point?
GPO exhibits. Yeah, just kind of like the mall exhibits, the small time exhibits.
Right.
And it's like, you know, move beyond that because the facility is there in Hagatnya. You can rotate it, you can refresh it. But then at the same time, look at all the stuff that we've done. You know,
Right.
we've brought the Lati back.
Right.
You know, we've brought ancestors back. You know, there have been major decolonization conferences for the youth, and you know the exhibit that's opening. We've major work that's been done, and you can see it on social media, but you can also see it in the building of the museum itself. People, and Chamorros in particular, see the museum in a completely different way.
Right.
It's like filled with life.
Which is awesome. I don't, you know, a lot of you might not know this, and I actually get scolded for this quite a bit. Is that the legal official name of the Guam Museum is actually the Guam and Samoru Educational Facility. The Senator Antonio M. Palomo Guam and Samoru Educational Facility, which, you know, admittedly is an extremely long title, and a lot of people just say Guam Museum. You know, which is, and I get it. It's the right way to do it is to give it its whole name. It's kind of like the airport, you know. The airport is, nobody says A.B. Won Pat International Airport. And like my family is one that's like, we need to always say the whole name. And I'm like, Ma, that's a lot. Can we just call it the airport? And if we're not in Guam, can we call it the Guam Airport?
Well,
You know?
Won Pat's place.
And so, you know, I've totally had people call me out like, you're not saying, you're not honoring Senator Palomo. I'm like, man, I'm sorry. That was not my intent. My intent was, you know, no disrespect to Senator Palomo. It's just a super long title. But, you know, I got to say, it's an exciting thing that, you know, that now at the Senator Antonio Palomo Guam and Samoru Educational Facility, we're actually facilitating Samoru culture and education. And I think it's a really exciting thing, you know. So, you know, thank you for all of your work, and of course all of the hands and minds that help at the Guam Museum. There's a big team over there, you know, as well as over at the Samoru Village and the newly operating Guam Cultural Repository. Also got a great team of people doing work over there. And, you know, we partner with a lot of organizations like Kumishon Samoru and the SHPO's office. So, you know, there's a lot of great work that has been happening We work very closely with the administration and other elected officials. Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio has been extremely supportive of a lot of the work we do. I mean, he's been very instrumental, in especially in the repatriation efforts.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I'm really grateful for. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that I know a lot of people are not aware of. But just so you know, and since I have the chance, Dr. Bavacqua is a very important piece in all of this, and he's been very aggressive, has worked very closely with Pat Lujan at our state historic preservation officer, and the two of them have really, I can confidently say that without the efforts that the two of you have put forward, we wouldn't be where we are today. And but also to acknowledge that without it, even with these really great people at driving these efforts and doing this work, there's so much benefit from having the support of the highest office in the government and being able to show up to appear before for example, the board of trustees over at the Bishop Museum, having the lieutenant governor in tow. It's like a totally different conversation, because now it's like you're not just dealing with, institution to institution. Now we're talking about government to government, which is a really great thing. And I got to also acknowledge the Bishop Museum crew in that particular effort, because it was the staff that really, helped to elevate this at their level so that when we send out the lieutenant governor to meet with them, we're having an appropriate, leveled conversation. Right. But I got to say, it's been a really exciting run. I've had a really great time. This was not at all what I thought I was going to be doing. I found myself at DCA by accident. Really. It was really an accident. I was originally hired to be the Commission on Decolonization Director, and I thought that was going to be it. But I got asked by the governor, not asked, I got voluntold by the governor to be the acting president at DCA when the previous president resigned. And it was supposed to be temporary. That was my understanding, though. I was just going to keep the seat warm and make sure that things don't just come to a screeching halt. Just continue all the projects. And it's been like 7 years. So it's been a really fun ride. And I got to say, I'm really grateful to have had this experience and to work with all of these really fantastic people at DCA. And one of the really cool things, I guess, unexpected benefits was the way that the work of the Commission on Decolonization has elevated, because now we're just kind of by default partners with DCA and the Guam Museum. And so, we've done, as Miguel mentioned, we've done a lot of different programs at the Guam Museum, a lot of different events. And what we're here to talk about today is the launch of the brand new exhibit at Zangin Tihita Pues Hadzi, which is going to be hosted by, which means if not us, then who? And it's hosted by the Commission on Decolonization in partnership with, of course, the Guam Museum. And it's launching this Saturday starting at 5 p.m. and it runs until about 8. And so I asked Miguel to come in because this is our last show before the opening of the event, and I wanted to make sure that we get a chance to announce it and invite people to attend.
It's so exciting. And just to give you some context for this, Typhoon Sinlaku and other things, kept kind of pushing the opening of this exhibit back. And so that's why we're all, no one more so than Melvin, we're all so happy to finally have an opening for this. And, I think that for those of you who have been following kind of the movement of decolonization, the movement of our people, our political development, this is going to be an exciting exhibit. I mean, even for those of you who get triggered seeing Chamorros protesting, trigger warning, spoiler alert.
Lots of triggers.
Yeah, but if you get inspired by seeing Chamorro people standing up for their rights, pushing for their political development, the advancement of this island, our people, this exhibit will amaze you because it breaks it down to the groups, the individuals, and it has pictures, it's got documents, it's got artifacts. I mean, it's amazing because, the work that Melvin has been doing, the work that so many of us have been doing at the Commission on Decolonization at the Guam Museum really is trying to kind of tell this story about this decolonization conversation that's been going on for decades. Right? And sometimes there'll be people who say, no one cares about this. People do care about this because this is the future of the island. And so this exhibit is really all about, how did we get here? Who are the people that have sacrificed, that have fought, that have lobbied, even in the case of somebody like Angel Santos, went to prison for it. And so let us honor them, let us remember them, and then let us look at what's happening on our island and our islands today. Let's see where we go from here. And so I really cannot stress, enough that, especially when we look at what's happening in the Marianas today with deep sea mining, militarization, even in terms of, if people are waiting for FEMA response money, but people are wondering, like, why is it taking so long for this? And so there's always this issue with FEMA, like, waiting for the money, but also wondering, why is it so complicated? Are we being treated different? Is there something wrong with us? What's that? All of these issues come into play. And so I really think that this is an important exhibit to help us understand that context about what are we to the United States? It was 100 years ago that he wasn't a doctor yet, but Ramon Manalisay Sablan asked representatives of the federal government, Congress people that were visiting Guam, what are we to you? Are we fish or are we fowl? Are we a part of you or are we not a part of you? 100 years later, we still don't know. Right.
And I mean, I think that there's been a lot of different aspects of this conversation that have, it's kind of taken the hot seat. Like the citizenship conversation is huge right now, especially with this executive order from the president on, questioning the validity of birthright citizenship. I mean, he's attempting to strip birthright citizenship from people who have been, people whose parents are in the country illegally or illegitimately or have a criminal past or whatever. And he's saying, the executive order is saying that when those parents have kids in the United States and those kids are granted birthright citizenship, that they shouldn't be given citizenship. And I mean, this could be recognized retroactively. And so, this is, I think, is a huge concern for the people of Guam, especially because we're statutory citizens, which is a very different thing, of an inferior thing to birthright citizenship. And these are the kind of intricate issues that really are only relevant to people like us who live in, have the unfortunate circumstance of living in a territory. But, I think that the exciting thing about the exhibit for me is that there, like you mentioned, right, it's cool to honor individuals, groups, people who have really been trailblazers and kind of set the tone, set the stage for us. But, I think one of the other things that frustrates me in the contemporary conversation is when people say, like, well, why all of a sudden you guys care about decolonization, How come only now you guys are so upset? How come we never did anything about this before? And I just feel like not only is that problematic, but it's extremely disrespectful to all of these people, like you mentioned, who had, struggled and fought and in some cases, sacrificed a lot in order to uphold these values and to advocate and organize people to do this work. And that's even for me, I like to consider myself somebody who has worked hard enough to learn and to educate myself about our history. But even for me, doing the work on this exhibit was extremely enlightening. There were so many things that I was not aware of or that I had heard about, but I just didn't, I didn't take the deep dive into it to learn more. There's so many things that were just cool and exciting to be a part of the effort to put it together. And I got to give credit to my team at the Commission on Decolonization, Harmony Palaganas, Byron Uggan, and our lead is Ha'ani Sinicholas, who ironically is a part of, not actually, she's a member of our team, but she's not on our payroll. Because Ha'ani she's a member of the Navigating Home Fellowship Grant through the Center of Island Sustainability, who just did their conference last week. And this program I love because it's built to bring educated professionals who are living in the States, bring them home, and fund their work for a year. So we as a government agree to place them in in a position, but the grant pays their salary. And so we basically benefited from this grant in getting an additional employee on our team. And this was the primary task and delivery, right, was to build us an exhibit that we could utilize as part of our community education platform. But, of course, we're still just a small team of 4. We couldn't pull this off without significant help from others, including Dr. Bavacqua, who is the curator, and also his assignment from within the museum team was Tonya McDaniel, who is Guam Museum museum assistant. And so, this small team of individuals really led the charge in putting this thing together. And we're just kind of putting the finishing touches on it. So I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity of inviting you in to take a deeper dive into what the exhibit is really all about and some of the, I guess, the kind of fun and quirky things of the experience in building it. And so I figured the best place for us to start this conversation, since it's you and me, was that, Baguette and I actually had this. We had this conversation several years ago. I swear it was like right when I first started at the Commission on Decolonization, and you weren't even the curator yet. And we were just kind of spitballing ideas about, what would it look like, and what would it take to kind of tell this story. And in the beginning, it was kind of the conversation about, why all of a sudden, and why only now you guys care about this. And so Miguel and I were talking about, just some of the previous efforts, right? Efforts from people who we still are mentored by, but then going further back to even the people before them. And so in the beginning of the conversation, we were kind of just talking about ancient Chamorro, like Corral rallying, doing the rallying cry, the famous speech, and the Chamorro Spanish War. I remember telling Miguel that when I was in high school, I always was learning that we were always taught that the Chamorros just got annihilated by the Spanish because they had really advanced weapons. And it wasn't until I was older that I realized that I learned that the Chamorro Spanish War lasted over 20 years. And I never knew that when I was a teenager. And I always thought that was one of the things that I felt like would have really changed my perspective as a kid. Right? Because even in that perspective and saying, oh, yeah, Chamorros just got wiped out, and not acknowledging that the major factor was foreign diseases that we didn't have cures for, right? Even that perspective lends this kind of sense of inferiority, right? Yeah. Like we're just not, we're not as hardcore. we're not as good warriors, which obviously was not the case at all. And so when we first started this conversation, it was this it was cool because it was this very, very philosophical discussion about, how intellectual, how strategic, how deliberate, how organized, and how proud Chamorros have always been, even thousands and thousands of years ago during the Spanish colonial era. And so, for me, I was so inspired when we just, and it was really just I feel like this is what has been an ongoing conversation with you.
Oh, definitely.
Every time I run into Miguel, we have a conversation that's something about this. But it wasn't until you became the curator that we actually started to even just toy with the idea of what if this was an exhibit. And so in the very beginning, I remember saying to you that we, what if we did a who's who, the Manfadzi collection, right? If you guys remember, anybody who's was in high school in the 90s, you probably remember the Haletta series. Ironically, the Haletta series was developed by the Department of Chamorro Affairs, and it was mandated and purchased by DOE for use in Guam history classes. I thought it was really a very underutilized educational set.
Oh, definitely.
But one of the volumes one of the collections they had, it was was it 3 or 4 volumes of Manfadzi?
There was several, yeah, but the first one was, the Who's Who in Chamorro history, the Manfadzi, the white cover.
Right. And so when we, the Manfadzi, what I really loved about the Who's Who was that it was really focused on more like government leaders, right? Like people who were leaders some way in public policy or public service. But I always enjoyed that set because I felt like one, it was cool to learn about things that people had done throughout our history that, that was very, very much so from a place of a sense of pride and preservation, right? We wanted to assert ourselves and our beliefs and our culture and our identity in different aspects of our, government operation and existence. And I thought it was really neat to see that, right? To see how there's so many individuals that were so deliberate, so proactive. But I also thought it was a very, it's a very Guam and very Tomoto thing to be like, hey, boy, this is your auntie. You know what I mean? Or like, you better read this book, boy, because that is your grandpa. And that's totally my experience, Like, I remember that. My mom was like, oh, your grandpa's in that book. You better go read that. And I, of course, I'm like everybody else. I skipped to my relatives section. But after I read that section, then I read everybody else's. And it was a really great experience for me.
Oh, yeah. Your grandpa's in the first volume, and then your mom and your grandma are in the second volume.
Right. And this is one of those books that, like, I, every now and then I open one up and, like, I find one of my Pari's relative, and I take a snapshot and be like, hey, check this out. And they're like, oh, what is that? Oh, this is a book. Where can I buy that? And I was like, you can buy it at my office. How convenient for you. And so, I always thought that concept was super cool. Mm-hmm. And so I remember when we first started having the conversation, that was the idea. Like, what if we did a Who's Who exhibit? But when it really started to kind of come to life, I think the reality set in that there are too many Tomotos to do this thing like this. There are too many, which was an awesome thing. Like, I felt, granted, it was a huge hurdle to overcome, to kind of reconceptualize, like, how do we tell this story without having to take on the burden of, Miguel, you better not forget anybody. Oh, man. Because then they're going to be Ladzu, and granted, there still probably will be some Ladzu people. But I thought it was I felt so, I guess, I felt so happy to know that there were just too many Tomotos. I think it was such an encouraging thing for me to look at just this daunting list and history of all these different people that were, proactive in some way, shape, or form. And it was cool to see, to be reminded, like, Tomotos are just hardcore like that. Like, they have always been deliberate about governing themselves. They have always been deliberate about preserving their language, their culture, their identity, their way of life, and their place here in their homeland, which I always really appreciated. Oh, hell yeah. I got to say, like, when we first started doing this, we even had to kind of like trim the chronology, right, or the time frame. Like, we couldn't we had to just kind of lump chuck the whole, like, the ancient era and even the Spanish era, and we really had to start it at the American era, because that's where most of the documentation exists. Or at least the documentation that we know we can access and utilize.
And it makes sense, because it by that time, it's a discussion about a museum exhibit, and there's the Hinenauta exhibit upstairs, which is the broader view of history. And so, but one of the things that people, and it's a testament to how kind of our consciousness has changed. People go into the Hinenauta exhibit, and then, by the time they get to the end, sometimes they have questions like, hey, how come there's nothing about, like, what's happened in the last 20 years or 30 years, or how come there's nothing about this Commonwealth movement or Angel Santos or this? Right. And so that's why kind of focusing it on the last 100 years, 120 years was perfect. Right. Because that's the part that we really need people to kind of understand that this is the issue we're dealing with now. This is like the future of the island, the people, where we go, and so, but people have short memories. Yeah. Especially those who comment on social media sometimes. Oh, yeah. How come what? No one ever did no one has ever done anything about this, or people like that. And
if you wanted to do this, you should have done it a long time ago. Yeah. If you guys really cared about this, you would have done it when they signed the UN Charter.
It's like, whoa, in the 40s? Wow. Before my mom was born?
Yep. And so, but that's I think that's the cool thing, at least for me. And that's the thing that I'm hoping that people will intrigue people, and also will reward people if they come, is to be able to connect those dots, and that's to me, that's one of the exciting prospects, is that there are so many people that have been involved in this in some way, shape, or form, that if your family is from Guam, even if you're not Samoru, but your family is from Guam, there's a good chance that you can connect the dots back to your family's ancestors, right? Like, you can find a connection to a mover and a shaker somewhere down the line. And I think that's one of I gotta backtrack real quick and give props to the Independence Task Force and Independent Guahan, because when they first started organizing their community gatherings, this was one of the products that they would regularly put out for the community. So they had this thing called the Magat Tau Tau series, and I always thought this was the most genius idea. I love this idea. And so what the group did was, and if anybody is unfamiliar, the Independence Task Force is one of 3 task forces that work under the Commission on Decolonization. They're a group of volunteers. Their materials are funded by a legislative appropriation, so they get some funding where they can, produce flyers and brochures and social media content and all that good stuff, videos, whatnot. They cannot pay themselves, like they can't hire people, but they can contract, a company to produce, a booklet or whatever. And so the Independence Task Force decided to utilize their funds to start hosting these monthly community meetings. And the meetings were really just built to help people learn more about what would be the impact on Guam if we were to become independent. And so part of their programming included this Magat Tau Tau series. And what they did was they would identify an individual in Guam's history who had to be somebody deceased, which I also thought was genius. It
makes it easier.
Super smart. You don't get, you can't piss off anybody who's living. But what they would do is they would identify, a deceased individual who had some kind of contribution to advancing Guam's self-government. And then they would basically write a feature and make like this really cool, fold out, but a little like a brochure that talked a little bit about the individuals, their background, what they did, and what was it that they contributed to the advancement of Guam's political status, and then connect that to the advocacy for independence.
It was such a successful program to really connect.
I loved it.
What we're such a small community here, and even though there's 160,000 people, but we forget that those connections that we have are still so meaningful.
They are.
But just because you work with somebody every day doesn't mean that you understand them in all contexts. So, for example, like when we honored the late Tony Leon Guerrero from the Bank of Guam.
Oh gosh, that was one of my favorite ones.
All these people from the Bank of Guam came, and
I'll never forget that.
They they appreciated Tony, they liked Tony, but when they learned
that he was an advocate,
radical,
yeah, he was totally a radical.
He was like a radical person who wanted independence for Guam. They were like, whoa. And it was so eye-opening that this person who they had a connection to, that they appreciated in life, and it affected their memories of him. Oh yeah, he was a critical guy.
Yep.
He was
very pro Guam.
Yeah,
I would classify him. And admittedly, I never knew Senor Leon Guerrero, but just everything, especially because I was around when the crew was building his all the research right for what was going to be put out for him. I just remember learning more and more about him, and now that I've learned this, I would classify him as a nationalist.
Oh yeah,
and I love that title. But we need to make that a thing, guys. We need to make it a thing. Okay, nationalist in our context in the nation of Guam. Okay, this is a really great thing. It's a positive descriptor. But I would totally describe him as a nationalist. And I think one of the things that was really intriguing to me was that there are a lot of people in his era, right, his age group, that I would consider nationalists. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's fun. You know, I was just a kid growing up when Joseph Atta was our governor, and I remember in the way that the media would portray Governor Atta was often, I felt like it was racist. I felt like it was often very negative, right? Like they would, demeaning. That's a great way to describe it. They would make fun of his Tomoto accent. Mm-hmm. They would really like dial in when he would make like some kind of, simple like grammatical error. Yeah. And so, when I grow as a kid, I wasn't like tuned into those, those intricacies of how, how media representation affects the way we see a person. But when I got older and I saw that, I realized that this was also happening when I was starting to read more from Governor Atta and learn more about what he was doing when he was governor, because I was just a kid when he was rocking and rolling. Mm-hmm. And in the context of decolonization, I got to say that Governor Joseph F. Atta has become one of my favorite characters in our lore. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like just kind of seeing the things that he did, the things that he said. And even and to go even further, the some of the people that he kind of put into position to do work, I gotta say that he was a warrior. He was a real, a bona fide champion, and I don't think that he gets enough credit for that. And I don't think that most people, when they look back on Governor Joseph Atta, they don't talk about the work that he did to advance Guam's status and to advance the rights of Tomoto people. I mean, he was bold. Like some of the things that he has said on the record, like the camera's live. I remember one of the things that I love, my favorite things was, I think he was appearing before a congressional committee or something. Mm-hmm. And he opened by saying, "Hafide, my name is Governor Joseph F. Atta, and I am the governor of the colony of Guam," or something like that. Oh, yeah. The colony of Guam. And then he said, "Let us at least for today," I'm super paraphrasing here, but he said something like, "Let us, at least for today, acknowledge that, territory is just a nice way to say colony. And that colony just makes people uncomfortable, so we say territory. But let's not sugarcoat it right now." And I was just like, wow. When I was, from the time that I was old enough to be aware, I can't recall a time when our governor was that bold.
Oh, no. I mean, sometimes they might say it here in another context. Right. But to be in the belly of the federal beast, to say it directly to them. Committee, wow. But you're so right. You're so right. And I mean, and when you look even, and I think that's why oh my gosh, guys, we were rolling. I'm so sorry. Yeah. We got to pause because we are way over the mark. We're at the top of the hour. My bad, Yuli. My bad. We are in the zone. But we got to take a real quick break. You're tuned into Wave 105.1 FM, and we'll be right back with more of the Challenge the Status Quo.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Stacey Lynn. Thousands were in attendance when a gunman opened fire outside the White House Correspondents Association dinner last night. That included President Trump, who told CBS's 60 Minutes how it unfolded.
I was standing up and then turned around the opposite direction and started pretty much walking out, pretty tall, a little bent over because I'm not looking to be standing too tall. But I was walking out. It was pretty about halfway there, and they said, "Please go down to the floor. Please go down to the floor." So I dropped to the floor, so did the First Lady.
New details have emerged about the moments leading up to the shooting, too. Senior law enforcement sources say the suspect was seen on hotel surveillance, leaving a 10th floor room wearing all black, carrying a shotgun and handgun. He took a stairwell to get to a nearby entrance to the event. CBS's Nicole Skenga has more.
When the incident unfolded around 8:36 p.m., security screening operations were already winding down. And according to officials. Magnetometers used to screen attendees were already being dismantled by the Secret Service.
The suspect will be arraigned in federal court tomorrow. Violence at a college bike race near Indiana University. Bloomington Police Chief Mike Dekoff says 5 people were injured in a mass shooting.
A 20-year-old female, an 18-year-old female, 22-year-old female, a 17-year-old female, and a 21-year-old female.
Police believe the shooting occurred after a fight broke out between 2 females. A deadly tornado in North Texas. 2 were killed. Power lines were knocked down. Homes and buildings were damaged. Wise County Judge J.D. Clark.
Roads in the affected areas will remain closed by law enforcement to ensure safety and allow emergency crews to manage the scene without obstruction. Only authorized personnel will be permitted access until conditions are stabilized and hazards are clear.
The IRS is warning about scams using AI. CBS's Steve Kathan has details.
Kyle Holder handed over her life savings, more than $240,000 to scammers. Using AI, they created a female character who shared Kyle's interests to communicate with her, convincing her to put money into bogus crypto accounts. Harry Chavis is an IRS investigator.
You have tools that can really now so specifically write a script for you as a victim, not just a population as a whole.
He says crypto scams accounted for more than half of the more than $20 billion fleeced from Americans last year. This is CBS News.
I want to know what's going on in the world. I'm Tony. There are big questions that all of us are asking. I want to get you the answers. How are you? I'm Tony DeCopel. Join me on the CBS Evening News.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. No, we're not one of the big guys. Truth is, we don't want to be. If you're over 50, Big Wireless probably has you paying for more data than you might need. You could be throwing away thousands over a lifetime.
Our entry-level data plans start at just $20 a month. And for a limited time, switch and get your second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit consumercellular.com or a store near you and get your second month free today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional details.
I move mountains for a living. Literally. That means I don't carry hand lotion. And when it comes to serious heartburn, I don't mess around with anything but Rolaids. Rolaids' dual-active formula has calcium carbonate and magnesium hydroxide that relieves heartburn fast. Yeah, you heard right.
Rolling, man. We're in the zone. Miguel was feeling it, and I was into it. So we're gonna pick it right up where we left off.
No, I was feeling it. I love talking about this stuff because, the decolonization conversation, the decolonization movement. I mean, we've been in this for a good chunk of our lives, but for me, it's good. What I love about this exhibit, though, is that even if you don't know anything about it, you're gonna learn a lot. But even if you do know about this history, this movement, you're still going to learn a lot about it.
Right.
Because even, we find people, they say, oh, yeah, there's the Celebé protest, which was one of the first kind of organized grassroots movements against militarization on Guam. A lot of people don't know much about that.
Right.
And so there's a section in the exhibit where you can see news articles, you can see flyers related to it, you can see photographs, because this was where some of the first kind of young Chamorros who were indigenous rights activists, who were critically thinking about, like, what are the Chamorro people? They were they were seeing movements in the United States for African American rights, Chicano rights, in Native American rights. They were thinking about, what about the Chamorro people? These were people in the same generation who didn't like the idea of the Chamorro people being pushed around by the United States.
Right.
Didn't like the idea, that already felt like the U.S. had so much on Guam, they'd taken a lot, the Chamorro people had already given a lot, and decided not to give any more. So they, even in the Guam legislature, you had their own form of protest where they decided to block the governor at that time, Carlos Camacho, from giving up Celebé.
Right.
And so all of this happening, and it's one of the first protests against militarization in Guam in the early 70s. And so it's great because now protests against militarization in Guam happen, every week, every few weeks.
Right.
You'll see people like groups like Proteji Guahan out there. But in the 1970s, this was not common at all. As Dr. Robert Underwood likes to point out, in the Vietnam War, there was pro-war protests. There was people who stood by the side of the road with signs saying, bomb more.
Yeah, right.
Basically saying you should bomb more Vietnamese. Usually not Chamorros, usually kind of white Americans who said that. And so this is an important part of our history, which there's still people who are alive who participated in that. And so you get to learn some of that history. And that's what I love about this exhibit, is that movement inspired then other movements,
Right.
other in the government for more status change, conversations around status, but also other movements in education. Things like Chamorro Week, which became Chamorro Month, were inspired by these types of movements.
Right.
And so it's great to see the history there on the wall. So even if you've never heard of the Celebé protest, even if you've only just been to Celebé, even if you've only seen it from the overlook, there's a section on the wall there which can bring out that history and what it means for us today. And I love that.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, if you're just joining us, we've been chopping it up about the launch of Zangin Tihita Puesadzi, which is the newest exhibit from the Commission on Decolonization. It'll be launching this Saturday at the Guam Museum from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's a free event. The exhibit will run through at least the end of June. And so we invite everybody to come out. Of course, we'd love to see you at the opening. It'll be a really great gathering. I'm really looking forward to a lot of the contributors showing up. I think that's the thing that I'm really excited about, is that we're a lot of people lended something to help put this thing on. And so it's great to have our elders, who have been such an integral part of getting us to this place, so that they can engage with some of the younger people who are going to be learning this history for the first time. So we'd love to see you at the opening this Saturday, May 2nd, 5 to 8 p.m. But if you're not able to make the opening, it'll be on display at the Guam Museum and open for free tours every Tuesday through Friday, 9 to 4, and Saturday, 10 to 2.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have not been to the Guam Museum in a while, it's a great time to, come back and pay us a return visit. But we've just been talking a lot about, the experience of building this exhibit, what the exhibit is all about, and what people can look forward to if they come down to check it out. So, but yeah, I really love that section. It's ironically, one of our partners is Long Live, which is a clothing company down in Hagatna, right above Mosa's. I really enjoy Long Live. Long Live is like a bunch of like punk rock skater kids, and they're artists, musicians, skaters. Cool crowd. And one of the organizers partners is actually a close relative of former Senator Angel Santos, and so this guy's already educating his crew about this history. And so, when we got the opportunity when they won the RFQ for our contract for graphic design, that was one of the things that our graphic designer, Josh Barragata, mentioned, was that his favorite piece was the Celebay protest, because that was one of the things that he never knew about. And one of his comments was that, there's the recent action that's similar is the development in Pago Bay. And, obviously different in the sense that Pago Bay is a private development, whereas Celebay, that was for military munitions. But nonetheless, right, there's this sense of responsibility to the land and these areas that are important to us. And at some point, we kind of get to the place where we're like, enough is enough. Mm-hmm. And I always remember that's one of the things that always stands out for me as a kid. Growing up seeing Nashon Tamoru, Angel Santos, Uncle Ed Beneventi, Uncle Tony, Tero Sublan, Uncle Paget, and so many others that have kind of been front and center, right, in the media during these struggles for Tamoru rights. I remember, there's always kind of this accusation to, especially Senator Angel Santos, because he was the Magalahi at that time, that that Nashon was racist, right? That these are a bunch of racists, and I always remember him repeatedly saying that, I'm not racist. I'm not racist. I'm not anti-military. I'm just pro-Tamoru. Mm-hmm. And that always really resonated with me, because I don't think anybody, it's an uncomfortable thing to be accused of being racist, and especially when the work around decolonization, the work around advocacy for Tamoru rights has always come from a place of pride and a place of love. We love our language, our culture, our history, our land, our ocean, and these things are not just things; they're important to us, right? They're communal, and so when I remember that, I always embrace that sentiment. Mm-hmm. Because I knew in my heart that I wanted to be involved. I wanted to contribute to this work. But as a young person getting involved in this work, it's a very scary proposition. It's not the most popular thing, and you deal with a lot of backlash. Oh, yes. And you have to be ready for that. And I think that a lot of young people are not. And even for me, you and I are around the same age. We have Miguel and I have a lot of the same people who have mentored us. And I got to say, in my personal experience, I feel very grateful to have been mentored by so many of these people, like former Senator Hope Cristobal and former Magalahi or Defunto Magalahi Ed Beneventi. Is somebody that I really admire and I really appreciate, because he personally reached out to me and offered to mentor me, and so I feel like this is an important aspect for a lot of our young people, and this is why I was so excited to do this exhibit. Is I feel like it's very encouraging for young folks to see all of these different Chamorros from different walks of life doing the thing and actively working. It's very gratifying, very exciting. Oh, we got a call. All right, we're going to pause real quick and take this caller. If you are interested in getting on, the number is 922-1051 or 922-1052. And you can also WhatsApp the 1051 number. Hafide Kaduku, you are on line 1. You're on the air. How can we Can
you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Hafa day, senor.
Ever since, from me to my mother, to my grandmother, to my grandmother's mother, down to my kids, down to their kids, we've been playing this game too long. Racist, I'm learning to be, I'm going to go to the tattoo shop and put dumb and stupid and dumb or both on my forehead, because just because we stand up for who we are and our island, they say we're racist. The only racist I see is the other people being racist against us. And this the elementary school, I played sa Legends, pesling na panogi sa mo, pesling na panakilu, patog mo, I went to school, man. I didn't finish school, but I ain't that stupid either. My dear Uncle Sam, named Uncle Sam, na bituli togi tanu midro. That binanalo takti. Binapan unincorporated trust territory, or the unincorporated trust territory of the United States, and will fly you under a wing and will make you come Kadwa U.S. citizen, the bituli togi tanu midro. Because before that, they couldn't touch nothing, man. So these guys were smart at what they did. They said, how do we take it? How do we take it legally and fly them under our flag? That's how we do it. You guys want to be a U.S.? Kadwa, tatuli tanu niya, lang na binanaluan manadan ni gera sa work guards and makpuy gera maning kita po from matay to 75 years later, lang na we own it now, and for your work claim, here's your work claim. Then na kulang na na ide patin no children slapinian. Nami lai bidanin negi tau and we're the most loyal, law-abiding fighting machine this world's ever seen. We wear that uniform with honor and pride. I'm more American than America itself. Love Woodstock, man. I love American muscle. 454, 427, 396, 327. I love Panhead, Knucklehead, and Shovelhead. And they tell me I'm anti. No wonder why I always voting for the Indians when they used to walk Wild West and the Pandora and what's his name, Custer, and Custer last time, then they Indian take down that sign and take out Little Bighorn. They did the same thing to us too. And that's not nice. And here we are, we're in a tip of despair. We're protecting the continent of the United States against our enemies out of this side of the sticks. And this is what they do to us. They itapin them, target, itapin them, salak. Because if you want to get to there, you got to get to us. And we do everything we can. We even turn the toilet paper and the toilet sing and the toilet bowl. And this is what they do to us, man. Come on, man. You guys stop doing that, man. We're people out here. We need to live and die in our own homeland in peace, too. And they said freedom is not free. Masuli tori tanu for free. Dane lai lang na si Reagan lang nag-Gorbachev, take that wall down. Ita man makukalaragum. Up and down the cross here, I thought we were friends. Because she not 60-40, that's actually 60-40. Right now, we're not even invited to the table, man. And this has nothing to do with the storm and all that. This has something to do with decades of we're human. That's why we went to want freedom. And did we see freedom? Maybe, and Obama said slave days are over. Right now, slave days is alive and well out here under a different name, unincorporated. I own you. That means you are a possession, and you say as I do and do as I say, and then the dictatorship days are over. It's alive and well out here. I dictate to you, man, and don't say nothing. You do as I say, and say as I do. I mean, how can you own me? I can't even own myself, and here we are. We wear that uniform, man. We fight for the wars, and they still play with us. International court of law, man. Let's take them all the way to the World Bank. I don't care where we take them, but let's not let the They take over the land, not they want to mine the ocean. The two young ladies that came in from Atlantic, they say, hey, you guys, don't lift them, man. Look what they did to us out there and other places. They don't even need to mine it. Bula scrap metal, Panoy and Malago for free. Bula ni scrap metal. I don't know, man. Melvin, Dr. Miguel Bukwal-Lujan, we should take pictures of past, present, and future, and take pictures of people living in bus stops and outside the gate, and $500,000 home. That's just where I started home. And they said, we're going to the moon, and you can't even afford the prices at the store. Where are we going with this, man? All we demand is a little respect. And treat us like people and who we are. And treat us like human beings, because we didn't go fight the war for nothing. We went and fought for freedom. And malaksay, to do my daddy, my Rex, that's not nice. Come on, man. You try to do that in the continent of the United States, they'll find the closest tree and hang you. So anyway, you guys do a good job, man. Keep on doing what you're doing. And we spend so we call the respect, sir. That's it. I mean, like, treat us like people, man. Treat us like who we are, because we'll fight for that flag anytime, any place, anywhere in your backyard, man. And you know that. So why do you think people rush out here? Because we got a lot of smart people on the island, man. They need to stop standing up and stop standing down. And, you know, pamanakatati. So katagan ni Mizo. Pamanakatati sa sinamataga papay. Wow, history book, man. Hey, at least we bit back, man. And let's not go down saying they didn't even. Because we are going to, and we'll never stop until this is done. And one more thing, man. Therese Tamari for governor. I think she's the right lady to do this, and this good lady, and maybe we can take this bull by the horn and turn it around a little bit and make it 60-40, the 60-40. Right now, man, I did the room, man, and thank you. Just have a nice day, and thank you for letting me on your station, man.
Have a nice day, Senor Tsuzus Masi.
Okay.
We hope to see you at the exhibit May 2nd, 5 p.m. at the Guam Museum. Thank you for the call, Senor. It's always nice to hear from Senor Kaduku. That's our resident on-air poet. Yep. The call is always in poetic form. It's like Gil Scott Herrera.
Oh, yeah, Hongan. The revolution este masakit. Or Lowy decolonization to pumasakit.
You can't. It's not stealable.
Hongan. I mean, that's why but in so much of what Señor Jesus Masi Putoreno y Senengan mo na, but in so much of the history and the issues that were brought out, I mean, that's why the exhibit exists.
Right.
It's because, 1 minute you're America's Day begins, the next minute you're the tip of America's spear. Right. And so it's kind of like
the next minute you're being traded for Greenland.
Yeah, and the next minute they're selling off your ocean floor.
Oh yeah, there's another one.
And then the next minute they're canceling all your public health care grants, and the next minute they're taking your spongeless to put it in the time capsule. And
one of the things that I've I guess this might just be me and a small handful of people that nerd out hard, but there's a lot of cool pieces in the exhibit, but I gotta give a quick shout out to our friends over at Guampedia, and especially Mark, the Micronesia Area Research Center over at the University of Guam. Mark was kind enough to donate or loan us a number of archival documents, and this is one of the things that I really hope people will appreciate and enjoy, is that these documents are old. And so we can't just have everybody handling the documents. They're kind of brittle and falling apart. So we put them on display, in display cases. But what we also did was we created these high definition scans of all the documents that we're going to be displaying. And we're utilizing digital media. We put all the scans on iPads so that people can actually take the deep dive and nerd out and read all of these things. But the reason why I bring this up is because I think that a lot of us, even for those of us that are kind of tuned in, I think most of us are really aware of the, this storied history of civic engagement, right? Active engagement, whether in protests or in demonstrations. Nashon is kind of like the rock star in all of it, right? But there's a lot of other organizations, a lot of other people that have taken on these really cool and creative strategies to get others involved, others engaged, and to raise awareness. And it's nice, it's kind of a cool thing to see like the nerds have their day in our exhibit, because we really like try to give props to all the beautiful nerds that put this cool content together. And mind you, this is like, this is like in the 70s, 80s, where there's it's not like you had easy distribution with social media.
Oh yeah,
you didn't have a graphic designer. Again. It's cool to see like these posters and flyers that are like hand drawn. Like somebody was like, "Hey, who among us can draw?"
Yeah.
Like I imagine that's when they called like Uncle Al Lazama. They're like, "Hey, if I see Al fan, can you draw this for us? We need a cartoon here." Like so I remember on one of the when we were doing all the digging and compiling, right, like collecting all of these items to put on display. One of the things that ended up in our set was this. It was a political like flyer for Dr. Underwood, and it was like a cartoon. You know this one I'm talking about, right? With like I think there's like 3 people walking, and it's like that old like caricature, real exaggerated with like the big face, like the huge head and the huge feet. You know what I mean?
Like the Greg Flores style.
Yeah. And it said like I walk the streets with Underwood or something like that. Yeah. And man, when I saw it, when you look at it, you can right off the bat, you're like, oh, this is totally hand drawn, and it's just cool to see like, a hand drawn flyer or poster or like a document, like an educational document that's like in the New Courier font. Like somebody did it on a typewriter. It's probably like their 10th draft because they made a couple typos and you can't carbon copy this thing. Like the purple copies and stuff. It's so cool to see the creative ways that Tomorus were trying to get information out to the community, how to educate their community in a way that was going to be relevant, that was going to be meaningful, and that was going to resonate with them so that they wanted to organize, they wanted to be active and get involved.
Oh yeah.
And it was just super, it's so exciting. There's a lot of other cool pieces. Like we try to build out a kind of like a timeline, international timeline wall at the UN. Because that's also one of the areas that I think a lot of people are not very aware of, is this very deliberate, active engagement with the United Nations by Tomoru people. And that's one of the things, like this is, for those of you that are unfamiliar with OPIR, Organization for People's Indigenous Rights, let me put you on right now. Because OPIR is like, they're like the underrated, unsung heroes in a lot of this work. And it was just what really stands out to me about OPIR was that they were a very diverse collection of founding members with a lot of cool talent, very smart, and a lot of like real like big name recognition.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
You know them now. If you didn't know they were down with OPIR back then, you know them now for sure. But it was cool to see the way that they engaged, because it was very strategic and very deliberate. And it was different, and it was different, very different in the approach from, say, Nashon Tomoru. But nonetheless, cut from the same cloth, right? They clearly had a lot of similar goals. And the heart and soul of their work, their campaigns, I think were all very much aligned with Nashon Tomoru. It was just in a very different way. And it was even cool to see, like, we have a lot of cool documents and display for example, for the CONCON, the Constitutional Convention, which I think is a really exciting one too, because I hear the criticism all the time that, if you guys are really serious about this, you would have wrote a constitution by now. Congress said you could write it. Why didn't you do it? And it's just not as simple as that. And it's cool to see how no issue is just black and white, neither are our people. And there was a lot of Tomorus that really supported the Constitutional Convention, and then there are a lot of Tomorus who didn't support the Constitutional Convention.
So true.
And then even on top of that, there were Tomoros who absolutely supported the Constitutional Convention, but they didn't. They had a different idea about what it was for, and why they were doing it, and why they supported it. They also supported self-determination and self-government, but they were getting down on the con because they thought that this was a way that they could get something else done. You know, kind of like incremental change, right? Which is really cool. I think it's exciting to see that our people are unique and they're diverse. And some people, not everybody is like, going to scale the fence, but there are a lot of people who will. And then there are other people who are, they're going to approach it in a different way, but all of us agree that the Tomoro people have rights, that we are a real civilization, a real nation, and we deserve self-government.
No, you bringing up the Constitution is so important, because there are those who always try to kind of enter into this discussion looking for the Chat GPT quick, let's just download something, let's download a patch and just fix this. And there's nothing like that. It's gonna take a while. It's hard work. That's what everybody who does this work knows, is that there's no like easy, you just make a constitution and everything is fixed. And that's what OPIR and its predecessors, PADA and PADA, that's what people like Robert Underwood, Marilyn Manabusan, Hope Christobel, Clotilde Gould, Laura Sauder, that's what they all realized back then, is that the United States has told you to write a constitution. But in those discussions about, we want to put into our Constitution that we want to protect our environment. Well, you can't put that in your Constitution because you're a territory.
Right.
Your Constitution has to look exactly like the U.S. Constitution, and the U.S. Constitution doesn't have anything like that. We want to put something that says that Chamorros have rights. You can't do that. That's racial
because
discrimination.
you have to recognize the sovereignty of the United States.
And so then some people even tried to put something in that said, we want to recognize at least long-term residents.
Right.
So if you're here for at least this many decades versus those who just move here, you have extra rights versus can we at least allow that? And then in the discussions in the Constitutional Convention, they said, there's no way the U.S. would allow this. We can't have this in the Constitution. So by the end of it, what the draft Constitution was, it was just like a cut and paste of the U.S. Constitution. It just had a preamble that said the Chamorro people are the native people of Guam.
Right.
And it had no Chamorro element. It had nothing unique to who we are.
Right.
And so when Pada kind of did their advocacy at that time, like a lot of people saw through it because they're like, you mean we can't do anything at all with our Constitution? And a lot of people stayed home because they said this doesn't reflect who we are.
Right.
And so when people say we should just write a constitution today, they forget the decolonization conversation today is even more pronounced.
Right.
So if we all got into like the UOG field house, and there was delegates from every village coming together, what would we talk about? Would we say, hey, we want in our Constitution something about crypto. We want in our Constitution something about protecting from deep sea mining. We want in our Constitution, you can't do any of those things if you're doing it as a territory.
Right.
Which is why the simple truth that Parapada put out there, which is, Munga manafotna I, kareta ki I carabao. Don't put the cart in front of the carabao.
Right.
Pick your status first, which the overwhelming majority of voters understood then, which is why they rejected the Constitution.
Right.
Today, people would still understand that, which is like, look, we need to pick a status first. And so that's why this exhibit is so important, so people can come in and say, this is the history.
Right.
We rejected it before. Let's do the hard work then of figuring out our status, figuring out a status that works for us.
And I think that and we've seen how these conversations are still relevant today. It wasn't that long ago that the masses descended on the Guam legislature to defend the rights of the Tomoro people and the native inhabitants of Guam to self-determine. And as you, I'm sure, know if you were paying attention these last few months, there was a bill that was proposed to open the eligibility requirement for the self-determination referendum for Guam to any registered voter on the island. and which, is contradictory to our law. Even though our law was challenged and defeated in the Ninth Circuit Court, our law says that eligibility is only for what we define as native inhabitants of Guam. And so, I think that was one of the things that for me personally, sitting through that, what was it, like 7.5 hours of testimony.
And there's supposed to be more.
Yeah, there's supposed to be more. They didn't even get through it. Senator Lujan said that they would host additional hearings so that everybody else could be heard. But it was, I thought it was kind of bittersweet, right? To see somebody like former Senator Marilyn Manabusan show up to testify so many years later, right? Auntie Marilyn is retired now, and rightfully so, deservedly. And, we interrupted her day, her usual day of rest and relaxation. And like, oh, great, I got to go back to work. Didn't we do this already? Didn't we discuss this already? And, the sad thing, I think, was that for me, I'm somebody that was, over here taking attendance and noticing all these champions that just aren't there because we've lost them already.
It was beautiful.
And it was really sad, but, also really awesome to see somebody like, Auntie Marilyn show up who has put in the hard yards and deserve a break, but is still, she's alive and she's well and she's willing to continue to fight. And it's very encouraging. But, the thing that really stood out for me was that there were a lot of people who came out during that engagement to remind our senators that we had already decided this in policy. We've already debated this over and over and over again. We've said what we think. We've put our money where our mouth is and put it on the policy. Literally put our money where our mouth is and paid Dave Davis's fees in that court suit. And we still believe that this is in line with our values. And so, I really loved that perspective was present during the debate around this bill and this issue. And even for us in building the exhibit, we made sure to include even things like that, like our 1997 law is going to be on display, because there's also a section in the exhibit on, the community's response in support of Tuamotu self-determination. We even recognize, our allies in the fight, like my all-time favorite group, Filipinos for Guahan, or formerly known as Filipinos for Tuamotu self-determination. We give these guys recognition because they're an important part of the contemporary conversation, and challenging this, this assumption that because we support Tuamotu self-determination that we're somehow racist. So I think it's great to see, especially for somebody who, in our community who gravitates towards this discussion, but is unsure and uncertain about, how to prepare themselves for what comes after, right? I think it's encouraging to see that you're not alone. You're not the only person who feels this way. And even generations and generations before you, we've always felt this way. And we've always been willing to kind of stick our necks out and take these risks and sacrifice our comfort, because now we're the crazy people that get berated by the Paul Zerzins and Ken Leon Guerreros of the world.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
He's going to call me. He's going to call me and ask me to look up the definition of referendum.
Oh, good Lord.
I'm going to read. I have to read the Webster's or Google definition.
So silly. But it's, it's, you mentioned kind of Nashon Chamorro, and it's funny because in that time, there's a beautiful collage wall. There's several collages for kind of the movement of Nashon Chamorro, right, and the kind of the sacrifices that they took on, blocking the road at Potts Junction, getting arrested, and people
doing the die-ins. I love the die-ins.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The die-ins are my favorite. Just to see all these Chamorros laid out in the lawn somewhere. They're like, oh, I'm not moving.
No, and it's always an important reminder that at that time being called an activist,
right?
That was
a bad word.
That was a very bad word.
Yep, absolutely.
It was a very bad word. I remember when I was going to UOG and hearing my family argue about whether Angel Santos was the devil.
Right.
This was the late 90s, and I wasn't sure who Angel Santos was, and I'll never forget when I was at work study at UOG, and some of the other employees at UOG, to piss off this one a black guy who worked at the field house, to piss him off, they put an Angel Santos Hita sticker on his car. He got so pissed off. He ran in yelling, and I was like so confused, because I'd lived in the States for a few years for high school, and I came back and was going to UOG, and I couldn't understand like why everyone was so upset about like Angel Santos. Like,
Right.
Who was he? And then later, like I realized it, but like the term activist was so even when I started to like be critical, when I started to protest, I remember my grandmother asking me once, "Mike, you're not an activist, right?" And then my grandfather saying, No, Mike is not an activist. Mike, no, I, Tisinya. But I was like, I think I am an activist, because I'd started to hang out with like Ed Benavente.
Right.
I started to go to like Nashon Chamorro meetings. And so, but we look at what it was like 20 years ago, 25 years ago to today, where there's still some stigma. You'll
Right.
still get haters online. You'll still have to fight. You'll still have to do battle with the trolls online. But that's part of kind of this struggle, is that the conversation space has been opened.
Right.
So now there's museum exhibits about it. Now the Decolonization Commission has put out amazing resources about it. Now people do essays, they do dissertations on it.
Yeah, the
It's
high
this-
school kids debate it for their final project.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
big part of life, and that's important, and we want to build on that, so that those who scream and cry, "No one cares about this. This is irrelevant," they become quieter and quieter. So those of us who realize we got to deal with this. This is the future of our island, and it's the future of the Chamorro people. We can get around to doing the important work.
I mean, I think that that's a great perspective, and I agree. I think that if we, and that's also, I mean, that was the whole point of using that, using this title, right? If not us, then who? Right? Why that title? I think that the point was that we in mapping the chronology and kind of like trying to curate, right? Like what are we going to focus on to tell this story? Because we couldn't cover every single individual. We couldn't cover every single, civic engagement or demonstration or, educational campaign or whatever, right? We kind of had to pick and choose the big ones and just dial in on those and just try to, cover as much as we could. But I think that one of the common themes throughout is that if, the people, the individuals who led those moments, right? Even in the kind of isolated individual events, the people who led those actions were often a small group of individuals, and they were often like isolated or even like outcasted in some ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's already a tough proposition to stick your neck out and say, I'm going to be seen doing this, and we're going to get other people involved, when other people are really stand out, like they don't want anything to do with that, because there's way too much negative stigma attached to it. But at some point, every one of these individuals is kind of faced with this moment of truth, right? Like, are you going to do this? And if not, then who will?
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't do this, then it will never get done, and nobody will care. And eventually, we truly do become extinct and erased. And I think that it's an exciting thing for me to look back and see so many people before me and know them, right? Know them because they taught me, they welcomed me, they loved me, raised me. But then to also see all these other people that I didn't know about, that were shoulder to shoulder with these people who mentored me, and then even the people who mentored them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, wow, this is such an amazing thing that there's this, every generation of movers and shakers has certain people that are just willing to be that much more courageous,
Mm-hmm.
and that much more willing to sacrifice pieces of them in order to build something for the next generation. And, I've always felt grateful. I've always felt grateful that, somebody like, Sina Anti-Hope Cristobal would just take the time to sit down and talk to me, would have a conversation with me and let me ask my questions, or that, like Senator Angel Santos. I'll never forget when Senator Angel Santos was I felt fortunate enough to actually have had a relationship with Senator Santos. And that's really only by accident, right? It just so happened that my mom was in the legislature at the same time that he was in the legislature. And, you know, we met each other. You know, I fangingi him every time I see him. And I knew who he was because he was friends with my parents. But, you know, my parents were not taking us to the demonstrations when we were kids. So it's not like, you know, I was... And I grew up, I'm around the same age as, you know, Senator Santos's kids too. So we knew each other, but, you know, we weren't like doing all the things, you know, shoulder to shoulder with them. And it just so happened that my dad died when they were in the legislature together. And so when my dad died, Senator Santos came to me and, you know, offered his condolences and just told me, if you ever want to talk or, you know, you need anything, I'll help you. Or, you know, you know, please let me know. And so every time I would see him, he would always stop. No matter what he was doing, he would always stop. I would fangingi him, and he would just like ask me, you know, what's my favorite subject at school, or like, you know, what sports are you playing now, or whatever. And it was just very, you know, very casual, but it meant a lot to me because, you know, why talk to me? You didn't owe me anything. And so, you know, but I recognize that there are so many other people who are involved in this work that haven't had somebody to mentor them, to love them.
That's true.
You know,
That's
and true. so and I can imagine that is a very lonely place to be. I mean, this is lonely work, even when you have people who love you and have people who support you. It's still very lonely work, and it's difficult work. And so, you know, I really hope that young people that are somehow drawn to this issue and that want to feel a sense of place and a sense of belonging, a sense of community, I think this is a great place to find that. You know, I think it's super encouraging to see that there are literally generations and generations and generations of people just like you who feel the same way, and you're not the crazy one. And it's okay. Like, you know, your parents might be having this same debate like Miguel's family did, like, oh God, please tell me that Jose is not an activist. Yes, he is. You know, too bad. But I think that this is even a great place for, you know, for your parents who, you know, who have this stigma attached. You know, I'll never forget my mom. Like my mom used to always get mad at me when I used to say, you know, this is when I like later in my teens or early 20s, and I'm, you know, kind of coming into my own consciousness, right? And I would always say, I'm not an American, I'm a Tsumoru. And my mom would say, no, you're an American. And I would say, all right, well, I'm a Tsumoru first, and then I'm an American. And then my mom would say, no, you're an American, and you are Tsumoru, but you're an American first, you know? And I remember we used to fight about this all the time. And then I'll never forget when the draft environmental impact study came out for the military buildup. And mind you, this is happening, like, even our elected leaders are learning about the buildup on like CNN. Like, we had no idea that this had been brewing for years and years and years between the United States and Japan. Even our governor found out on the news. It's crazy. And so, you know, for my mom was the speaker at the time. And she was furious. My mom was furious, and I'll never forget it. It was like this, like, you know, it's like come to Jesus moment where my mom was like, wait a minute. Why is this happening? Like, why are we in the dark on this? This is not right. And so, you know, at that time, just spoiler alert, this is when me and Miguel really became friends. We knew each other before that, but we ended up becoming good friends because we were part of the group that organized a whole bunch of nerds to read the 10,000 page DEIS and translate it, like, you know, summarize it so that our people could understand it. Because who's going to read 10,000 pages? And we knew that was the trap, right? And so I never forget that this was also like my mom's like waking moment, where all of a sudden my mom is an activist and she's like, hey, you guys, I'm like, Mom, can we meet at your office? We need a place to meet. And she's like, yeah, boy, this is the people's office. You know what I mean? Like, this is for the people. Our people need to be educated. Whatever you need. And she would like loan us her little like printer so we could like print out the information and give it to people at the town hall meetings. And I always thought that was an important moment for her, even for, and, you know, it was cool because, you know, this is my mom who I grew up with, who was like very kind of conservative growing up in her political views, but seeing her kind of come into her own and like, you know, have to have this moment of introspection as a Tsumoru, as an individual, and come to her own kind of conclusion about what it means. And now, shoot, man, my mom is like a for reals activist. Like,
oh yeah,
my mom trolls us in our family chat. Can you believe what Trump is saying here? It's terrible. I call out even our local leaders, like, who is this and why are they doing this? I cannot believe this. I'm just like, Mom, you don't do that job no more. You need to stop. And so, I think that how much easier I think me and my mom would have had a different relationship if we had gone to this exhibit like 25 years ago. But 25 years ago, you couldn't put on an exhibit like this. Nobody would want to host this exhibit. We wouldn't have a place.
It's only because of the work that was done and then the work that we've done.
Right.
That's why I mean, and it's to what you said, that for young people today who are critical, and whether your critique comes from social media, that you're progressive, you're liberal, or whether your critique comes from what you see on the island, this exhibit, is important because there are those who have come before. There are those who have protested before, those who have fought before, those who have achieved success before. Right. And so it's always been up to us to ask the questions, to push. And so it's never been, that's why it's great that it's happening at the Guam Museum, right? Because the Guam Museum, a decolonized Guam Museum, which tells the Chamorro story, not the Destiny's Landfall history, in which history comes to Guam and the Chamorro people are like, wow, ooh, it's like an infomercial. Oh my goodness, the sham wow. No, it's like we are a part of history. Right. We make things happen. And so it's great, if you have those questions, if you have that spirit, you will come and you will learn that there are those who have come before who have also had those questions. And so you will see yourself, do you see yourself in a Melvin? Do you see yourself in a Hope Cristobal, in a Robert Underwood? Do you see yourself in a Paul Berdaliu or a Ricky Berdaliu? Right. I mean, that's one of the things, even for in my generation, we look at those ahead of us and we say, like, are you an Angel Santos? Are you an Ed Benavente? Are you a Trini Torres? Are you a Malayat Joe Garrido? Because we look at that generation and we can see a little bit of perspective now on their accomplishments, what they did, what was their approach, what stances they took, and now we can see ourselves and what we've done. Right. And so this exhibit is a chance to look back at multiple generations of Chamorros who have fought for causes. And so now you can look back and see where do you line up, because it's part of our culture. For those who have said that Chamorros don't protest, this is not who we are.
I disagree with that.
It's clearly part of who we are.
I disagree with that, and we got evidence. We got evidence. If you want to see it, come down May 2nd, 5 to 8 p.m. at the Guam Museum. It's a free event, and it will be on display through June, and it is free. So even after the launch, if you're not able to make the opening, you can still come down and tour it for free. I encourage you to give us a visit. Check out our website, decall.guam.gov. We're also running on Guam COD and on Instagram, and Commission on Decolonization on Facebook. I want to thank Dr. Michael Lujan Bavacqua, our curator at the Guam Museum, for coming in to join us. Thank you, Miguel. I appreciate your time. And before we get off, I need to shout out Jordine, who has been blowing us up on the Instagram Live. Thank you for the props and respect. We appreciate you. Thanks to everybody who has been religiously listening to the show. I really appreciate your time and attention, and I hope to see you at our exhibit opening. Thanks again. It's really happy for me to be back. Really great to even see Yuli. I haven't seen Yuli in a while. Thanks, Yuli, for holding us down. And thanks for everybody who is doing the good work. We look forward to seeing you at the exhibit launch and hearing back from you next week, Monday, 10 to noon on Challenge the Status Quo. Have a great day, everyone, and be safe. Adios.
Woohoo.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Stacey Lynn. Surveillance video from the Washington Hilton shows 31-year-old Cole Allen leaving a 10th floor hotel room with guns in hand. He went down a stairwell to get near the entrance where thousands, including the president, were gathered for the White House Correspondents Association dinner. President Trump described to 60 Minutes the scary and chaotic scene. and fire.
Some of these people, they may